The fog arrived suddenly, crawling through the streets like skeletal fingers. Then the laughter began. It wasn't normal laughter. It was distorted, wrong, echoing between the houses like whispers of something hungry. That's when Marcos saw the tall shadow, the eyes bright like cracked glass, and the smile. God, that smile. But no one can ever run fast enough. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Tell us about your stories and where you're watching from. The fog arrived just past midnight. It always did. It slithered in like a living thing, curling around lampposts and swallowing the streets in thick, suffocating silence. And then came the laughter. Not joyous, not human. Marcos had heard it before. Everyone in Riacho Fundo had. But that night, as he walked home from his shift at the diner, the laughter sounded closer. He stopped under a flickering streetlight, heart pounding. The town was empty, the buildings lifeless silhouettes. Then he saw it. A shape in the fog. Tall, unnaturally still. Eyes like fractured glass, glinting in the darkness. And the smile. A wide, impossible grin stretching beyond the limits of a human mouth. The laughter grew louder. Marcos turned to run, but his feet felt trapped in molasses. The thing in the fog didn't move, but somehow, it was closer. A whisper brushed his ear, though no one was there. "You looked too long." Marcos screamed. No one ever saw him again. The only thing left behind was a single, blood-speckled red nose. Lucas Moreira hadn't been back to Riacho Fundo in almost 10 years. Now, as his car rumbled down the desolate road leading to his childhood home, he wondered if that had been a mistake. The town looked the same. Too much the same. Like it had been preserved in amber, untouched by time. The "Welcome to Riacho Fundo" sign was rusted, half hidden by overgrown weeds. His father's house stood at the end of the street, dark and lifeless. He wasn't here by choice. His father had died 2 weeks ago. Heart attack, they said. But something about it didn't sit right with him. His dad had been healthy, strong, and then there was the other thing. The last voicemail his father had left him. "Lucas, you need to listen to me. It's getting worse. The fog. It's not normal. I see them, son. They're laughing, but it's not right. If something happens to me, don't..." The message had cut off abruptly. Lucas swallowed hard and turned off the ignition. The town was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Then he saw something strange. A small crowd had gathered near the town square, people whispering, shifting nervously. Something lay in the middle of the cobblestone street. Lucas pushed through the murmuring crowd, and then his stomach turned to ice. There, right in the center, was a single red clown nose smeared with something dark and wet. Someone had disappeared. Again. And just like that, he knew. Coming back home had been a terrible mistake. Lucas couldn't tear his eyes away from the red nose on the ground. It wasn't just the sight of it. It was the way the townspeople reacted. They weren't just afraid. They were expecting it. "Who was it this time?" a woman whispered. "Marcos," someone else muttered. Lucas felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't know Marcos, but that didn't matter. He recognized the look in the crowd's eyes. This wasn't new. This had happened before. A heavy hand clamped down on his shoulder. He turned sharply. "Lucas?" He blinked. The woman in front of him was familiar. Dark eyes, sharp features, a worry line between her brows. Then it clicked. "Isabela?" His younger sister had grown since he last saw her, but the fear in her face reminded him of the kid who used to crawl into his bed during thunderstorms. "You shouldn't have come back," she said. Lucas frowned. "It's my home." "Not anymore," she whispered. Before he could question her, a gust of cold air rolled through the town square. The fog had started to creep in. People scattered like roaches, doors slammed shut, windows locked. Within seconds, the streets were empty. Except for the laughter. It was faint, barely more than a whisper carried by the wind. Lucas felt his stomach tighten. Isabela, what the hell is going on here? She grabbed his wrist. Not here, come on. Lucas sat at their father's old wooden table, staring at the cup of tea in front of him. His sister sat across from him, arms crossed, foot tapping against the floor. They come with the fog, she said finally. Lucas scoffed. Who? Isabela hesitated. We don't know exactly. Some people call them the laughing ones. Others just say, the clowns. A bitter laugh escaped him. You're joking. Isabela's face remained stone cold. Do I look like I'm joking? He didn't answer. She exhaled, rubbing her temples. It's been happening for years, Lucas. It's always the same. The fog rolls in at night. People hear laughter. And if you look too long, they take you. Who takes you? She shook her head. No one knows. They just vanish. Like Dad did. Lucas felt a pang in his chest. Dad had a heart attack. She gave him a sharp look. Did he? Silence stretched between them. Then, knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the house. Isabela's face drained of color. Don't answer it. Lucas frowned. Why? Knock, knock. Louder this time. A shadow passed by the window. Something was standing outside. Lucas moved before he could think, stepping toward the door. Isabela grabbed his arm with surprising force. I said don't. A noise filtered through the door. Not knocking, not speaking. Laughter. Low, slow, dragging across the wood like nails on a chalkboard. Lucas's blood turned to ice. Isabela motioned for him to step back. She reached for a small candle on the table and blew it out. The room fell into darkness. The laughter outside continued. Louder, closer. Lucas held his breath. Then, silence. Seconds passed, minutes, an eternity. Isabela didn't move. Neither did Lucas. Then from outside the window a voice whispered, I see you. Lucas didn't move. Neither did Isabela. The whisper from outside the window sent a jolt of ice through his veins. I see you. Then, a soft tap against the glass. Slow, rhythmic. Fingernails. No. It sounded harder, like plastic. Isabela's grip on his arm was painfully tight. She mouthed a single word. Don't. Lucas ignored her. He had spent his entire life running from this town, from its secrets, from his own fear. But now, he had to see. Slowly he turned his head. A face was pressed against the glass and white skin stretched too tight, hollow ink-black eyes, and a grin, wide, unnatural, frozen in place. A clown. Not the kind from birthday parties. The kind that belonged in something ancient, something wrong. It didn't move. It didn't blink. But he knew. It was staring right at him. Then, its mouth twitched, just slightly. The grin grew wider. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. It was real. This was real. Then, the lights flickered. A guttural laugh erupted from the other side of the window, and then it was gone. Not walked away, not faded into the fog. Just gone. Lucas stumbled back, his heart hammering in his chest. What the hell was that? Isabela grabbed him, shaking him. I told you not to look. His ears were still ringing from the laughter. What happens now? She swallowed hard. It saw you. Lucas felt a sharp chill crawl down his spine. And that means... Isabela didn't answer. A long, distant scream cut through the night air. Lucas and Isabela froze. It was coming from the town, from the square, from the fog. Then, the laughter returned. More than one voice this time. Dozens. Lucas wasn't the type to sit and wait for death. The moment the sun rose, he demanded answers. Isabela was reluctant. "You don't understand, Lucas. No one talks about it. No one even acknowledges it." "That's the problem," he snapped. "People are dying." They headed for the library, the oldest building in town. The only place left that might have records of what was happening. Inside, dust clung to the air like ghosts of forgotten stories. Donna Olivia, the frail, elderly librarian, eyed them suspiciously. "Looking for something specific?" Lucas leaned on the counter. "The disappearances. How long have they been happening?" Her face paled. "That's a dangerous question." Isabela crossed her arms. "We're not leaving without answers." Donna Olivia hesitated, then motioned for them to follow her into the archives. The records were ancient. Faded newspaper clippings, handwritten journals, missing persons reports dating back over a century. Lucas's stomach twisted. "This has been happening for over 100 years?" Olivia nodded. "Since the circus." Lucas blinked. "What circus?" She hesitated, then pulled out a fragile, yellowed poster. "Circo das Sombras, one night only." Beneath the elegant lettering, a faded illustration showed performers smiling under bright lights, acrobats, fire breathers, and clowns. The faces of the clowns had been scribbled out. Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. "They never left?" A cold sweat broke out on the back of Lucas's neck. "You're saying the clowns from this circus are the ones taking people?" She shook her head. "No. I'm saying the circus never really closed." Isabela exhaled sharply. "The fog, it's not natural, is it?" Olivia's lips tightened. "The fog is a doorway, and if you stay in it too long, you become part of the show." Lucas stared at the old woman. His pulse pounded in his skull. "Then how do we stop it?" Olivia's wrinkled hand trembled as she pointed to a passage in an old journal. The words sent a shiver down his spine. "They watch. They wait. They laugh. And when they take you, you never truly leave." Before Lucas could say anything, the lights flickered. Then a soft, slow knocking on the library door, low knocking. Knock, knock, knock. And from outside, a familiar voice, his father's voice, whispered, "Lucas, open the door, I need to see you." "Lucas, open the door, I need to see you." The voice on the other side of the library door was unmistakable. It was deep, familiar, his father's voice. But his father was dead. Lucas's hands clenched into fists. His pulse hammered against his skull. This wasn't real, it couldn't be. Isabela took a sharp step back, her face pale. "It's not him," she whispered. Donna Olivia gripped Lucas's arm with surprising strength. "No matter what it says, no matter what it does, do not open that door." Then, a second voice joined in. "Lucas, please, it's so cold out here." This time it was his mother, and impossible. She had died when he was a child. His breath hitched. The air in the library grew thick, suffocating. The fog outside pressed against the windows, swirling like fingers reaching for the glass. Then came the laughter, soft, distant, growing closer. "Lucas." The voice cracked with pain. "We miss you. Don't you miss us?" His legs locked in place, his chest tightened. Of course he missed them. He had spent years haunted by their absence, by the things he never got to say, the apologies he never made. And now, they were just beyond the door. All he had to do was open it. His fingers twitched toward the handle. Then, a sharp pain on the side of his head. A book slammed into his skull. Lucas stumbled back, blinking in shock. Isabela was standing there, breathing heavily, gripping another book like she was ready to swing again. "Snap out of it," she hissed. He shook his head. The spell broke. And then, bang. The door rattled violently as something slammed against it from the other side. Not knocking anymore. Pounding. The voices twisted, warping into something guttural, inhuman. Donna Olivia grabbed a handful of black salt from a small tin and threw it against the door. Instantly, the pounding stopped. The voices shrieked in pain. Then, silence. Only the fog remained, shifting against the glass like a living thing. Lucas swallowed hard. His hands were still shaking. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. Donna Olivia exhaló lentamente. "They know you're here now." Isabela ran a hand through her hair. "We need to leave." Lucas nodded. "No, we need to end this." Donna Olivia guided them back into the archive room, where the old journals lay open. She traced a frail finger along the brittle pages. "There was a way," she murmured, "a way to stop the circus." Lucas leaned in. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. Break the cycle. Banish the Ringmaster. His eyebrows furrowed. Ringmaster? Olivia nodded gravely. The circus was never run by ordinary men. It was him. The one who laughs first. The one who never stops. Lucas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. And how do we banish him? Olivia hesitated. Then she turned the page. There, beneath the old text, was a sketch. A man in a tattered red coat, his face hidden beneath a cracked porcelain mask. He watches. He waits. He calls the fog. Isabela's breath hitched. "You mean, he's still here?" Olivia's voice trembled. "He never left." Lucas's jaw clenched. His father had been investigating this before he died. Maybe that's why they took him. "We need to find him," he said. Olivia's expression darkened. "Be careful what you wish for." Then the lights flickered. A deep, distant bell tolled in the fog, and from somewhere outside a voice, low, echoing, filled with ancient amusement. The show must go on. Lucas's blood ran cold. Isabela's fingers dug into his wrist. "Lucas." From outside the library, the laughter began again. Not distant this time. Close. Right at the door. The laughter outside the library door wasn't just laughter anymore. It was a chorus. A twisted, layered sound. Some voices high and giggling, others deep and guttural, overlapping like a sick symphony. Lucas clenched his fists. His heart pounded. "This is it," Isabela whispered. Donna Olivia's eyes darkened. "Once you step into the fog, there's no turning back." Lucas exhaled. "Then let's finish this." Without another word, he pushed the door open. Into the fog. The town was unrecognizable. Fog swallowed the streets thick as smoke. The buildings loomed like shadowy skeletons. But worse were the shapes moving within it. Twisted figures, flickering in and out of sight. The clowns. Their smiles gleamed unnaturally in the haze. Some swayed in place, others crawled on all fours. One was hanging upside down from a lamppost, its head twitching unnaturally. And at the center of it all, the circus tent. It hadn't been there before. Black and red stripes stretched unnaturally high, far too tall for a structure that had no right to exist. From inside, a deep bell tolled. Lucas stepped forward. "That's where he is." Isabela grabbed his arm. "Lucas, wait!" Too late. The laughter rushed toward them like a wave. Shadows burst from the fog. The clowns moved. Isabela screamed. Olivia threw black salt into the air, forming a barrier, but it wouldn't hold for long. Lucas ran, straight into the tent. Inside, the air changed. The laughter stopped. The world outside no longer existed. The tent stretched forever, lined with flickering carnival lights. The smell of rotting candy apples filled the air. At the center of the ring, standing beneath a single spotlight, the Ringmaster. He was tall, unnaturally so. His red coat was tattered, dragging against the ground. His porcelain mask was cracked, revealing glimpses of something wrong underneath. And his grin, it was carved into the mask. Lucas's breath hitched. "You've been watching, haven't you?" The Ringmaster's voice was smooth, rich, dripping with amusement. "Searching for answers. How brave." Lucas swallowed. "I'm here to end this." The Ringmaster's head tilted. A sharp crack echoed through the tent. "End it?" He chuckled. "Oh boy. You don't end the show. You join it." He raised his hand, and the fog exploded inward. Lucas was drowning in laughter. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was inside his head, inside his bones. The world twisted. The tent pulsed like something alive. Hands, cold, gloved, endless, grasped at him from the fog. He was losing himself. Then, a voice. "Lucas! Isabela!" She was there, just outside the fog, holding something. Donna Olivia's journal. A single phrase burned on the page. "Break the cycle. Banish the Ringmaster." Lucas's mind snapped back. He wasn't just an audience member. He was the one who could stop this. He reached deep into his jacket pocket, his father's old lighter, the only thing he had left of him. His hands shook. The Ringmaster loomed closer. Lucas's eyes locked onto the grin carved into the mask. The mask. That was the key. With every ounce of strength left in him, Lucas lunged forward. He grabbed the mask and tore it off. The scream that followed wasn't human. The mask crumbled in his hands like ash. Beneath it, there was nothing. No face, no features. Just a black gaping void, a mouth that never stopped laughing. Then the Ringmaster collapsed. The tent shook. The lights flickered. And outside, the fog began to thin. The clowns let out a shrill, unified screech as they melted into the mist. The town, the nightmare, was unraveling. Lucas stumbled back, gasping. The laughter was fading. And then, silence. Real silence. The fog was gone. The town was still. The circus was no more. Lucas and Isabela stood in the empty square. The streets were quiet. The air was clear. It was over. Isabela let out a shaky breath. "You did it." Lucas didn't answer. His fingers still trembled. His father had tried to stop this before him. Had he failed? Had he been taken? Or had he escaped? He'd never know. But at least now, the town was free. Lucas turned to his sister and forced a tired smile. "Let's go home." They walked away side by side. Neither of them noticed the small red nose lying in the gutter, waiting, watching, and somewhere carried by the wind, a whisper of laughter. The fog has lifted. The nightmare is over. Or is it? Lucas and Isabela walk away, believing they've escaped the horrors of the circus. But in the shadows, something lingers. A small red nose, forgotten in the gutter. And carried by the wind, a whisper of laughter. Some things never truly disappear. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment below. What do you think really happened to Lucas's father? Could the circus return? Like, share, and subscribe if you want more terrifying tales like this. And remember, never follow the laughter in the fog.